Part 1. A routine mission. In the gleaming halls of the Galactic Council headquarters, a group of alien diplomats gathered around a circular table. The room hummed with tension as a holographic display flickered to life above them. "As you all know," began Ambassador Xyloth, his scaled skin shimmering under the artificial light, "our long-range sensors have detected signs of a new sentient species in a previously unexplored sector." Murmurs rippled through the assembled diplomats, their varied forms, some insectoid, others reptilian or mammalian, shifting in anticipation. The discovery of a new species was always a momentous occasion. "What do we know about them?" asked diplomat Ixana, her feathered crest rising in curiosity. Xyloth manipulated the hologram, zooming in on a blue and green planet. "They call themselves humans and reside on this world they've named Earth. Our initial scans suggest a primitive civilization, having only recently developed basic spaceflight capabilities." The council members nodded, exchanging knowing glances. They had seen countless nascent civilizations over the millennia, and guiding them into the galactic community was a core part of their mission. "We've assembled a diplomatic envoy to make first contact," Xyloth continued. "The ship is prepared and awaits your approval to embark." "Have we any indication they might pose a threat?" queried Counselor Vortex, his gaseous form swirling with unease. Xyloth shook his head. "Highly unlikely. Their technology appears centuries behind our own. We anticipate a smooth integration process." Satisfied, the Council unanimously agreed to proceed. As the meeting adjourned, Ixana and her fellow diplomat, a silicon-based life form named Chrysix, made their way to the departure bay. "Another primitive species," Chrysix mused, his crystalline structure glinting. "One would think the universe would offer more of a challenge." Ixana chuckled softly. Now, Chrysix. They all have to start somewhere. I'm sure these humans will be grateful for our guidance." Boarding the sleek diplomatic vessel, the pair settled in for the journey, confident in their mission success. As the ship slipped into warp speed, leaving the council headquarters far behind, they reviewed the limited data on their new charges. Bictal, carbon-based, with a surprising amount of phenotypic variation, Ixana observed, perusing the scans. "They've achieved a global information network, but still rely on chemical propulsion for their fledgling space program." "Quaint," Chrysix remarked, his facets glinting with amusement. "I give them a century or two before they're ready to join the council." As Earth grew larger on their view screens, the diplomats prepared to make contact. However, an unexpected reading from the ship's sensors gave them pause. "What's this?" Ixana leaned forward, her crest flaring in surprise. "I'm detecting a large metallic object in orbit around their moon. It's not in our initial scans." Chrysix joined her at the console, his crystalline brow furrowing. "It's massive, easily dwarfing our vessel. But these readings, I've never seen anything like it." The diplomats exchanged uneasy glances as their ship drew closer to the enigmatic object. It soon became apparent that it was no natural phenomenon, but an artificial construction of immense proportions. "By the stars," Ixana breathed, her voice tinged with disbelief. "It's a warship, a human warship." Chrysix shook his head, his facets reflecting the looming behemoth. "Impossible. Their technology couldn't possibly. Unless we were wrong about them all along." As the alien vessel cautiously approached the human battleship, its sleek lines and bristling armaments painted a picture at odds with their expectations. The humans, it seemed, were far more than they appeared. An unexpected discovery. As the alien diplomatic vessel cautiously approached the imposing human battleship, Ixana and Chrysix could only stare in awe at the behemoth before them. The warship's sleek, angular lines spoke of a technology far beyond what they had anticipated from a supposedly primitive species. "Look at the size of it," Ixana whispered, her feathered hand trembling slightly on the console. "It's easily 10 times the size of our ship." Chrysix nodded, his crystalline form refracting the light from the view screen. "And those weapons emplacements. I count at least 100. This is no mere scout ship. It's a full-fledged battlecruiser. As they drew nearer, the ship's sensors began to pick up more details. The hull was composed of an unknown alloy, its surface shimmering with a faint iridescent sheen. Intricate patterns of glowing lines ran along its length, hinting at advanced energy systems within. "We need to report this to the Council immediately," Ixana said, her voice tight with tension. "They need to know that we're dealing with a far more advanced civilization than we thought." Chrysix was about to reply when a sudden burst of light from the human ship caught their attention. A beam of intense energy lanced out from one of the battleship's turrets, striking a small asteroid that had been tumbling through the void. The space rock instantly vaporized, leaving no trace of its existence. By the stars, Chrysix breathed, his facets flickering with a mixture of fear and admiration. "Did you see that? They destroyed that asteroid with a single shot." Ixana swallowed hard, her crest flattening in apprehension. "We need to be careful, if they perceive us as a threat." Steeling herself, the avian diplomat opened a communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Greetings, humans of Earth. This is Diplomat Ixana of the Galactic Council. We come in peace, seeking to establish relations between our civilizations." There was a long, tense moment of silence. Ixana and Chrysix exchanged nervous glances, wondering if the humans would respond. Just as they were about to try again, a deep, resonant voice filled the ship's speakers. "Galactic Council vessel, this is Captain Ilara Vostok of the Earth Defense Force. We acknowledge your peaceful intentions. However, we are curious as to why you have approached our world unannounced." Ixana cleared her throat, choosing her words carefully. "Captain Vostok, we apologize for any confusion. We had no record of your species' advanced technological state. Our initial scan suggested a civilization in the early stages of space exploration." There was a pause, followed by a hint of amusement in the human's voice. "Ah, I see. Well, Diplomat Ixana, it seems your scans were somewhat incomplete. We have been exploring the stars for quite some time now." Chrysix leaned forward, his curiosity overriding his trepidation. "If I may ask, Captain, how long have your people been capable of such feats?" "Oh, a few centuries now," Vostok replied casually, as if discussing the weather. "But we prefer to keep a low profile. The universe can be a dangerous place, as I'm sure you're aware." Ixana and Chrysix shared a look of astonishment. A few centuries. The implications were staggering. The humans had not only achieved advanced spaceflight, but had managed to keep it hidden from the galactic community at large. "Captain Vostok," Ixana began, her mind racing with the potential consequences of this revelation, "I believe it is imperative that we meet in person. There is much to discuss between our peoples." There was a brief pause before Vostok responded, her voice tinged with caution. "Agreed, Diplomat Ixana. We will allow your vessel to dock with our ship. However, I must warn you that any signs of aggression will be met with swift and decisive action." Ixana nodded, even though the human could not see her. "Understood, Captain. We come in peace and hope to foster a spirit of cooperation between our civilizations." As the communication channel closed, Ixana and Chrysix prepared to dock with the human battleship. They knew they were about to step into uncharted territory, both literally and figuratively. The fate of the Galactic Council, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance of this historic meeting. With a soft shudder, their vessel came to rest within the cavernous hangar bay of the human ship. Taking a deep breath, Ixana and Chrysix made their way to the airlock, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The true nature of humanity was about to be revealed, and the universe would never be the same. Rising tensions. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, a scene of controlled chaos unfolded. Representatives from a myriad of species argued and gesticulated, their voices rising in a cacophony of fear and confusion. At the center of the maelstrom stood Ambassador Xylov, his scaled visage grim as he called for order. "Please, everyone, calm yourselves," he shouted, his voice cutting through the din. Panic will not serve us in this situation. Gradually, the clamor subsided, leaving an uneasy silence in its wake. Xyloth took a deep breath, his gills flaring as he surveyed the assembled council members. As you have all been informed, our diplomatic envoy has encountered a human battleship of unparalleled technological advancement. This discovery has forced us to reassess our understanding of their civilization. Councillor Vortex, his gaseous form roiling with agitation, spoke up. Reassess. Xyloth, this changes everything. We cannot allow a species with such military might to remain unchecked. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, tinged with the unmistakable undercurrent of fear. Xyloth raised a scaled hand, calling for silence once more. I understand your concerns, Vortex, but we must not jump to conclusions. Ixana and Chrysix are still aboard the human vessel, gathering information. We must await their report before taking any drastic action. As if on cue, a holographic display flickered to life in the center of the chamber. The images of Ixana and Chrysix, their forms slightly distorted by the transmission, appeared before the council. Esteemed council members, Ixana began, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her posture. We have made contact with the human captain, Ilara Vostok. She has confirmed that humanity has been capable of advanced space travel for several centuries. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber, followed by a flurry of hushed whispers. Chrysix spoke up, his crystalline voice ringing clear. Furthermore, Captain Vostok has assured us that the humans have no hostile intentions towards the galactic community. They have kept their technological advancements hidden as a means of self-preservation. Councillor Vortex surged forward, his form crackling with agitation. Self-preservation, more like preparing for conquest. We cannot trust the words of a species that has deceived us for so long. Others joined in, their voices rising in a chorus of fear and suspicion. Xyloth struggled to maintain order, his own doubts gnawing at his mind. Enough, he bellowed, his voice reverberating through the chamber. We will not make decisions based on fear and speculation. Ixana, Chrysix, continue your discussions with the humans. We need more information before we can proceed. As the council members grudgingly acquiesced, Xyloth turned to his aide, a lithe insectoid creature named Zix. Zix, I want you to assemble our fleet. Move them to the edge of human space, but do not engage. This is strictly a precautionary measure. Zix nodded, her compound eyes glinting in the chamber's light. As you command, Ambassador. As the council dispersed, an air of unease permeated the room. The revelation of humanity's true capabilities had shaken the very foundations of the galactic order. Suspicion and fear now colored every interaction, every decision. Light years away, aboard the human battleship, Ixana and Chrysix found themselves in a tense standoff with Captain Vostok and her crew. The initial cordial atmosphere had given way to a simmering undercurrent of mistrust. You have to understand, Captain, Ixana pleaded, her feathers ruffled with agitation. The Council is frightened. They see your advanced technology as a potential threat. Vostok shook her head, her eyes hard as steel. And you have to understand, diplomat, that we will not be bullied or coerced. We have kept our peace for centuries, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves if threatened. Chrysix stepped forward, his crystalline form glinting under the ship's lights. Perhaps a compromise can be reached. If you were to share some of your technology with the Council as a show of good faith. Vostok laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound. Share our technology. With a Council that sees us as a threat, that would seek to control us. I think not. Ixana's heart sank as she realized the precariousness of their situation. The Council's fear and the humans' resolute stance had created a powder keg, ready to ignite at the slightest provocation. Captain Vostok, she said, her voice low and urgent, I implore you, do not let this escalate into conflict. There must be a way to find common ground, to forge a path of peace. Vostok regarded the avian diplomat for a long moment, her expression inscrutable. I hope you're right, diplomat Ixana, for all our sakes. But know this, we will not be cowed, and we will not surrender our freedom." With those words hanging in the air, Ixana and Chrysax could only watch as the human ship prepared to depart, the fate of two civilizations balanced on a razor's edge. The rising tensions had brought them to the brink of a conflict that could shake the very foundations of the galaxy. As the Council fleet moved into position and the human battleship stood ready, the universe held its breath, waiting to see which path would be chosen. One of diplomacy and understanding, or one of war and destruction. A show of force. In the cold, unforgiving depths of space, two fleets faced each other in a tense standoff. The sleek, angular ships of the Galactic Council, bristling with weapons, hung in the void like a swarm of angry insects. Opposite them, the lone human battleship loomed, its iridescent hull shimmering with barely contained power. On the bridge of the Council's flagship, Ambassador Xyloth stood rigid, his scaled hands clasped tightly behind his back. Beside him, Councillor Vortex swirled with agitation, his gaseous form crackling with barely suppressed anger. "They refuse to yield," Vortex hissed, his voice a sibilant whisper. "We cannot allow this defiance to go unchallenged." Xyloth shook his head, his gills flaring with frustration. "We must give diplomacy a chance. Vortex, war should always be our last resort." Vortex surged forward, his form coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape. "Diplomacy. With a species that has lied to us, that has hidden its true strength. No, Xyloth. The time for talk is over." Before Xyloth could respond, a flash of light on the view screen caught their attention. The human battleship had initiated a broadcast, the image of Captain Ilara Vostok filling the screen. "Ambassador Xyloth, Councillor Vortex," she began, her voice calm and measured. "I urge you to reconsider this course of action. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Vortex bristled, his form crackling with energy. "You dare dictate terms to us? You who have deceived the galactic community for centuries." Vostok's eyes narrowed, a flicker of annoyance crossing her features. "We have deceived no one, Counselor. We simply chose to keep our advancements to ourselves, to avoid the very situation we now find ourselves in." Xyloth stepped forward, his voice steady. "Captain Vostok, surely you can understand our concern. Your technology far surpasses anything we have encountered. The Council fears that such power, left unchecked, could pose a threat to the balance of the galaxy." Vostok shook her head, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "Ah, there it is. Fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what you cannot control. Let me make this clear, Ambassador. We have no interest in conquest or domination. We simply wish to be left in peace." Vortex surged forward, his form crackling with barely contained rage. "Enough. You will surrender your weapons and submit to Council oversight, or face the consequences." Vostok's expression hardened, her eyes turning to chips of ice. "I will do no such thing, Counselor. I have tried to be diplomatic, but it seems you are determined to provoke a conflict." With a wave of her hand, Vostok terminated the transmission. Xyloth turned to Vortex, his scaled visage grim. "You have made a grave error, Vortex. We should have continued negotiations, found a peaceful solution." Vortex's form swirled with agitation, his voice a sibilant hiss. "No, Xyloth. The time for talk is over. We must act now, before it is too late." With a gesture, Vortex signaled the fleet to advance. The Council ships surged forward, their weapon systems locking onto the human battleship. On the bridge of the human vessel, Captain Vostok watched the approaching fleet with a mixture of resignation and determination. She had hoped to avoid this, to find a way to coexist peacefully with the galactic community. But it seemed that fear and aggression had won out over reason. "Helm, bring the Aegis array online," she ordered, her voice calm and steady. "Tactical, prepare to engage defensive protocols." As the bridge crew rushed to comply, Vostok's thoughts turned to Ixana and Chrysax, the two diplomats who had tried so hard to bridge the gap between their cultures. She hoped they had managed to escape before the fleet's arrival. The council ships closed in, their weapons glowing with barely contained energy. Vortex's voice crackled over the comm, filled with triumphant malice. "You have one last chance, humans. Surrender or be destroyed." Vostok's response was a single, quiet command. "Engage Aegis." In an instant, the human battleship was enveloped in a shimmering field of energy, a gossamer web of light that pulsed with power. The Council fleet, caught off guard, opened fire, their weapons impacting harmlessly against the Aegis shield. Vostok's voice rang out across the comm, calm and implacable. "Ambassador Xyloth, Counselor Vortex, let this be a demonstration of our capabilities and a warning. We do not seek war, but we will not be cowed by threats." With a flicker of thought, Vostok activated the ship's advanced EMP systems. A pulse of energy surged outward, washing over the Council fleet like a wave of shimmering light. In an instant, the alien ships were dead in space, their systems fried, their weapons disabled. On the bridge of the Council flagship, Xyloth and Vortex could only stare in stunned disbelief at the scene of utter defeat before them. The human ship, untouched by their assault, hung in the void like a silent sentinel, a testament to the foolishness of their aggression. "What have we done?" Xyloth whispered, his voice heavy with the weight of his failure. "We have brought this upon ourselves." Vortex, his form reduced to a feeble wisp, could only nod in mute agreement. They had underestimated the humans, had let their fear and arrogance blind them to the true nature of the species they sought to dominate. As the Council ships drifted, powerless and crippled, the human battleship stood firm, a shining beacon of humanity's strength and resilience. The galaxy had witnessed a show of force, unlike any it had ever seen, and the balance of power had shifted irrevocably. In the silence that followed, Captain Vostok's voice echoed across the void, a message to the Council, and to all who would hear it. "We are humanity. We come in peace, but we will not be subjugated. Let this be a new beginning, a chance for understanding and cooperation. But let it also be a reminder. We will defend ourselves, and we will not be underestimated again." Seeking understanding. In the aftermath of the human battleship's decisive victory, an eerie stillness settled over the battlefield. The once proud ships of the Galactic Council drifted aimlessly, their systems crippled by the humans' advanced technology. On the bridge of the Council's flagship, Ambassador Xyloth and Counselor Vortex sat in stunned silence, the weight of their defeat pressing down upon them like a physical force. "We have made a terrible mistake," Xyloth whispered, his voice heavy with regret. "Our fear and arrogance have led us to this moment, and now we must face the consequences." Vortex, his gaseous form reduced to a feeble wisp, could only nod in agreement. The Counselor's earlier bravado had evaporated in the face of the humans' overwhelming power, leaving behind a hollow shell of uncertainty and doubt. As they sat, lost in their own thoughts, a chime from the communications console broke the silence. Xyloth looked up, his scaled brow furrowing in confusion. A message? From whom? With a trembling hand, he activated the console, and the image of Captain Ilara Vostok flickered to life on the screen. The human commander's face was stern, yet there was a glimmer of something else in her eyes, a hint of compassion, perhaps, or understanding. "Ambassador Xyloth, Counselor Vortex," she began, her voice steady and calm. "I know that our peoples have had a difficult first encounter, but I believe that we can still find a way forward." Xyloth leaned forward, his gills flaring with surprise. "Captain Vostok, I don't understand. After all that has happened, why would you reach out to us?" Vostok's lips quirked in a small, sad smile. "Because, Ambassador, I have seen too much conflict in my time. I have witnessed the horrors that can be wrought when fear and mistrust are allowed to fester. I do not wish to see our civilizations travel down that path." Vortex, his form flickering with uncertainty, spoke up. "But what of your victory? You have shown us the true might of your species. Why not press your advantage, demand our surrender? Vostok shook her head, her eyes hardening with resolve. That is not our way, counselor. We are not conquerors, seeking to dominate and subjugate. We are explorers, seekers of knowledge and understanding. Our strength is not a weapon to be wielded, but a shield to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Xyloth felt a glimmer of hope kindle in his heart. Perhaps there was still a chance for peace, for a new beginning. What do you propose, Captain? He asked, his voice tentative. A meeting, Vostok replied, her tone earnest. A chance for our leaders to come together, to talk and to listen, to learn from one another and to find common ground. I believe that if we approach each other with open minds and open hearts, we can forge a new path forward. Xyloth nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities. It would not be easy, he knew. There would be obstacles to overcome, old prejudices and fears to confront. But the alternative, a future of endless conflict and destruction, was too terrible to contemplate. I will convey your message to the council, he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. And I will do everything in my power to ensure that they accept your offer. Vostok smiled, a genuine expression of warmth and gratitude. Thank you, Ambassador. I look forward to the day when our peoples can stand together as allies and friends. As the transmission ended, Xyloth turned to Vortex, his eyes alight with determination. We have been given a second chance, my friend. A chance to make things right. We must not squander it. Vortex nodded, his form solidifying with newfound purpose. Agreed. We will face much opposition from those who still cling to their fear and mistrust. But we must be steadfast in our resolve. And so, in the cold and quiet of space, a new hope was born. A hope for understanding, for cooperation, and for a future where the myriad species of the galaxy could live and thrive together in harmony. It would not be an easy road, for the scars of the past ran deep. But with each step, each small act of trust and compassion, the old wounds would begin to heal. In the days and weeks that followed, the leaders of humanity and the Galactic Council came together, just as Captain Vostok had proposed. They met not as adversaries, but as equals, each side eager to learn and to grow. The humans shared their knowledge of advanced technology, offering to help the Council races develop and prosper. In return, the Council shared its wisdom, its understanding of the intricate web of life that spanned the galaxy. Slowly but surely, the bonds of friendship and alliance began to form. Where once there had been fear and suspicion, now there was curiosity and respect. The galaxy had witnessed the strength of humanity, but now it saw another side, a side of compassion, of understanding, and of hope. And though the road ahead was long and uncertain, one thing was clear: the future would be shaped not by the might of weapons, but by the power of ideas, of cooperation, and of the indomitable spirit that dwelt within the hearts of all sentient beings. For the first time in countless centuries, the galaxy looked to the stars not with trepidation, but with wonder and joy. A new era had dawned, and the possibilities were endless.